Hey, hey, what's going on, everyone? Happy Thursday to all of you. Lauren Sisler here with AL.com for this edition of Auburn SEC Insider. We got Tom Green joining us now to chat a little Auburn football. It's been a few minutes since we've caught up with you, Tom, and we're cruising right through spring practice, something we did not have a season ago. So it's wonderful to be talking about spring football. You've got a haircut this time. I remember this time last year, we were all kind of working through the pandemic of no haircuts and trying to figure things out. So it's good to see your face, good to see your smiling face, and let's dig right into it. So obviously this year presents a lot of question marks because we have a new coaching staff at Auburn, all new coaching staff. This week, you had the opportunity to talk with some of the assistants on the defensive side of football as well as offensive side of football. So you got to hear from them, kind of got a feel for how things are going. Just kind of off the top, I just want to get sort of a lay of the land. Now that you've gotten more opportunity to have face-to-face time with Coach Harsin and sort of what he brings to the table, what are your overall feelings about the new coaching staff and more specifically Coach Harsin and what he brings to this Auburn football program?
Well, it certainly seems like a different approach than Gus Malzahn and his staff had. Just from seeing Bryan Harsin bounce around at practice, he moves around a lot more from position group to position group. They've been working more on one field, whether that's at the athletics complex or in Jordan-Hare Stadium. It kind of gives him a better lay of the land, lets him kind of freely move around throughout practice and just get really involved. And he's a real detail-oriented guy. And just watching the way that he runs practice, they had that one fully open practice to the public early on in spring. That there was another window open to the media during the second week. We're supposed to get another look this Saturday. It's just been really interesting to see kind of how he runs his ship.
Yeah, and I guess going along with that, one thing that kind of stood out to me was the fact that they opened up the first, I guess, practice in Jordan-Hare Stadium for the media to see, for fans to see, for people to kind of watch and get a glimpse into what's going on. Because at Auburn, I guess I would say specifically in previous years, a lot of times you, as media members, you'll get maybe 3 viewing periods, like 20-minute viewing periods throughout the entire spring to kind of watch what's going on. And typically that's a lot of stretching and some tempo drills, and that's about it. So, just kind of your thoughts on the access maybe being a little bit different now. Do you think that's just kind of an indicator of Coach Harsin and sort of wanting to maybe allow people to dig in and answer some of those questions that a lot of people have about what this Auburn football team is going to look like in the fall?
Yeah, I think certainly, it's a way to kind of ingratiate himself to this new fan base. For starters, Auburn hadn't had a fully open practice to the public since, I believe, the Tommy Tuberville era. So, it's been quite some time. So, you allow the public to get their first look at, kind of how things are going to be run and what's going on. And again, this was early in spring and, they're still installing their base offense, their base defense. So it's not like there's any state secrets that are getting out. And then, just giving the media a little bit more opportunity, I think is interesting too, because, it kind of familiarizes us with what he wants to do with that team and kind of the imprint that he wants to put on it. I think it's certainly a different approach. I think fans have really enjoyed it so far. I know as media, we've enjoyed our couple opportunities to, get to see this team up close and personal a couple times and, get to talk to some of the assistants, or rather all the assistants this spring, and kind of get to know them as they kind of, settle in as part of this new staff.
Yeah, and we'll start on the offensive side of the football. Mike Bobo being the offensive coordinator, Derek Mason, the defensive coordinator. And then, of course, like you said, you got to talk to the assistants throughout this week on both sides of the football. Just kind of your thoughts on sort of, we'll start on the offensive side of football, what Mike Bobo brings to the table and what we can expect from this offense. I know right now, like you said, they're kind of installing the base at this point, but what are your expectations for what this offense might look like, especially with what they have coming back and Bo Nix and some of the other, weapons, skill players, if you will. And then, of course, on the offensive line, which was an area that was a bit of a concern these last couple of years.
I think the biggest takeaway from talking to Mike Bobo earlier this spring was, the way he described this offense. He wants it to be a wide open pro style offense, where you can run the ball downhill. They're going to be physical. They're going to run the ball downhill. They're going to do some more I formation and two back sets and, two tight end sets, but they also want to be able to spread defenses out like you see, pretty much every successful offense do these days. So I think that was really interesting, just the way he described it. He's like, he was asked if he considers himself more of an old school coach, just because, he still runs some of that, I formation, pro style stuff. And I believe his response was along the lines of, if wanting to run down your throat is old school, then yeah, I guess I'm old school. So I think it's going to be kind of a different look for the offense. I know there's been kind of an adjustment period for the quarterbacks, particularly Bo Nix, just working on taking some snaps under center, because, that's not something they've done a lot of. They've worked on it, over the years, but it's just not something they have a lot of game experience doing. So I think that's really going to be interesting, just see kind of how the offense is shaped around Bo Nix and Tank Bigsby there in the backfield. And I think just looking at Mike Bobo's track record and Bryan Harsin's, background working with quarterbacks, just kind of seeing what they can do for Bo Nix and how they can help him take that next step, because they've both worked with some really good quarterbacks, especially Mike Bobo during his time at Georgia. So I think they should, be really good for Bo Nix, especially since this time around, he's actually getting a full offseason of work with his new offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach.
Yeah, and I think that is one thing to really point out that can make a substantial difference. You talk to players, you talk to coaches, how having that spring, this fundamental period, this developmental period is huge. I mean, especially in this, when you've got an all new coaching staff coming in and a lot of pieces kind of to adjust. On the flip side of the football, before we kind of wrap up, I do want to talk about the defensive side of the ball. Derek Mason comes in. We had a chance to talk with former Auburn linebacker Deshaun Davis last week, who had a lot of high praise for Derek Mason and just his abilities as a defensive coordinator, just a defensive mindset and what he can bring to the table, and really just his personality, his attitude, how he thinks it fits sort of with this Auburn, program at this point. What are your kind of takeaways and thoughts after getting to talk with Derek Mason and some of the other assistants on Wednesday?
Well, it was certainly great to listen to Derek Mason talk. I've gotten to hear him speak at SEC Media Days, several times, when he was at Vanderbilt. And, it's just always fascinating listening to him talk, as a defensive mind, but kind of just hearing what he wants to do with this defense. I know he's really been best known for, his 3-4 front, especially, he made his name doing that at Stanford. But kind of just the way he wants this defense to be versatile. We're going to see some 3-down linemen. We're going to see 4-down linemen. We're going to see, some 2 lineman sets with, edge rushers on either side, an outside linebacker. Going to see a lot of nickel. He's really going to, kind of make this offense flexible and have some fluidity between positions to kind of just, get the best out of them. It's really going to be interesting. Obviously, probably one of the biggest differences that we've seen, just from a personnel perspective is, they got rid of that buck outside linebacker position. And, now it's just a edge defender, which, they can be lined up at outside linebacker. They can be down there with their hand in the ground. They can be kind of floating off the line of scrimmage. I think that's going to, really help them kind of develop a better pass rush that's kind of been lacking the last couple seasons.
All right. So as we wrap up, Auburn A-Day game, April 17th, next Saturday. Tickets are $10, so you guys can come. At this point, I guess capacity, they've set a capacity at like 50%. Is that correct? Have you heard any on that?
I don't think they've actually announced what capacity is. They just announced tickets on sale last night, but didn't really have any further details on attendance parameters or anything like that.
Yeah, and I would imagine part of that is too because of capacity being at that. I know with A-Day games, I'd have to go back and look at what the record attendances have been in the past. But I mean, typically on average, isn't it around like 30,000 fans, 30,000 typically for an A-Day game at Auburn?
Yeah, something like that. I imagine capacity will be probably similar to what they did for home games last fall.
Yeah.
I know at least, from a media perspective, credential wise, they're going to, kind of limit us to the same number of people that were up there in the press box last fall. So I imagine it'll probably be similar for fans.
Yes, Hank Champion. Good to hear football talk. Let's go. All right. So April 17th, what is one or two things you are really excited to see on the field when they take the field and actually go live and hopefully sling the ball around a little bit and give us a little taste of what we could potentially see in the fall?
Well, offensively, there's a couple things. I want to see, how comfortable Bo Nix looks, with the base offense. Two, I want to see how they're using those tight ends. Obviously that's a position that Auburn fans have been clamoring for years. That's kind of really been underused when Gus Malzahn was here. We're going to see a lot more two tight end sets, I think, a lot more versatility in what the tight ends do. Yes, they're going to be blocking when they're in line, kind of helping with the run game. They're going to be out running routes. We've seen a lot of that from the open practice period so far. We're going to see some more traditional fullback. And the really interesting thing when we were talking to Brad Dell is, he doesn't want to pigeonhole any of these guys into, one specific thing. He wants to throw a lot at them and see how much each of them can do in terms of their versatility at that position. And that's a deep room this year between John Samuel Shanker, JJ Pegues, Brandon Frazier, Luke Deal, and Tyler Fromm and Landon King. It's going to be really interesting to see how they do that. And then at receiver, just who steps up? Auburn's replacing its top three receivers from last year with Seth Williams, Anthony Schwartz, and Eli Stove all gone. Shedrick Jackson's limited this spring dealing with injury. Zevion Capers, who's their other probably most experienced receiver, is recovering from January foot surgery. So just who's going to step up? We've heard a lot about Javarius Johnson, being the most consistent guy out there this spring. Malcolm Johnson Jr., who reclassified and was there last year, but didn't get to see the field too much. He's really got that big play capability and can kind of fit into that Anthony Schwartz role. And then, Kobe Hudson, just really good athlete and a natural born leader from everything we've heard. Just kind of seeing how those guys fit in. And then defensively, I think the thing I'm probably most interested to see is just how that new look secondary works. They lost a lot on the back end there, but they're bringing back, their top three corners. Roger McCreary, guy who's got NFL potential. Nehemiah Pritchett has moved over to nickel, which has allowed Jalen Simpson to hold down that other corner spot. And then they moved Darius Tennyson, who mostly played nickel last year, to safety to kind of fortify the depth back there with Smoke Monday. So I'm just kind of interested to see how that secondary looks with the new personnel and kind of maximizing their talent positionally back there.
Yep, it's going to be exciting. Looking forward to it. Auburn A-Day game set for April 17th. Get your tickets. They just went on sale for $10. Looking forward to that. Remind me, what time is A-Day game on Saturday?
Good question.
I'm drawing a blank.
I'm drawing a blank off the top of my head. I have not thought that far ahead yet.
Patrick, do you know Auburn Spring A-Day game? I'm looking it up, y'all. This is so bad.
Probably. Yeah.
What'd you say?
I think it's 1 p.m.
1 p.m. Okay. Yeah, that's 1 p.m. Is that correct?
And it will be on ESPN Plus or SEC Network Plus. One of those. It will not be on live TV.
Which is very interesting. Yeah, because most of SEC games, so that's kind of interesting. Most of the SEC games this year will be on SEC Network Plus. I'm not quite sure how they shook that out. I know Alabama will be on ESPN that same day, but outside of that, I think most every game that's being covered in the SEC is on Plus. So I imagine they'll do that too, because then you'll get to watch it on repeat, multiple times throughout the summer as part of their broadcasting. So good stuff. We appreciate it. Auburn A-Day game, April 17th, 1 o'clock Central. Love it. We got it straight. Hey, thank you, Tom. As always, we appreciate it. Love the haircut, and we always love the big fan in the background. I'm always jealous of that fan. You've got like the pretty in your house, and it's big.
Oh, it's a great fan.
It looks like it just does wonders, especially in the summertime. I imagine it's nice. And I've got a puppy that's running around here doing like zoomies during this whole thing. So I apologize for all the loud thumping. But thank you all for watching. We appreciate it, and we look forward to catching up with you again next week. Take